There's a big new discovery in Mexico. It's a Zapotec tomb in the Valley of Oaxaca, dating back to 600 CE. President Sheinbaum herself has celebrated it and called it the biggest discovery in the last decade. Now, I'm not sure it's that, but I am very excited to hear a Mexican president praise archaeology so publicly. So, don't get me wrong, it is a very cool find. It's this big tomb in the Valley of Oaxaca, and it's got two chambers. It's got an antechamber and then the tomb chamber itself. Each one of those chambers have a big lintel stone, like a megalithic stone over their doorways, and there's carved stone on the front and on the inside. In the interior, where you go into the tomb itself, there are carvings of a man and a woman on either side, probably whoever was in there's mother and father. And then there's actual painted murals on the inside walls. So it's a beautiful thing. But to understand it more, let's put it in a little context. The tomb was found in a little town at the north end of the Oaxaca Valley. It's named San Pablo Huitzo. And that area at 600 AD was part of Zapotec civilization, something that we really don't give enough credit or time to. It was a massive and very sophisticated civilization. Now, the heart of that civilization at 600 CE, when this tomb was found, was Monte Albán. That was the capital, and it sat right in the middle of the Valley of Oaxaca. Up on a big mountain in the middle of the valley sat the city of Monte Albán. That was the capital of the Zapotec civilization. The valley itself had three different arms or branches. Kind of looks like a big Y from the sky, but there's a northern branch, a southern branch, and a western branch. This tomb was found in a probably prosperous city there on the very north end of the North Valley. That's called the Etla Valley, and it's the most fertile. It has the best farmland of the entire Oaxaca Valley. Monte Albán controlled the entire valley. So it was the capital, and there were many, probably dozens of cities that were part of its civilization. They had this trade network where everything would come back up into the city of Monte Albán, and different cities specialized in different things. We call it a disembedded capital model, where everybody working in these little autonomous and prosperous places actually all harkened back to one big capital in the middle of the valley. So that's the situation of where this is. But as far as tombs being found, there are actually hundreds of tombs in Oaxaca. Monte Albán alone has over 100 tombs. I've been inside a lot of those tombs. Oaxaca is a great place to explore archaeology. The biggest, most elaborate ones are out in the western branch of the valley, at the site of Mitla. Mitla was basically the Zapotec Vatican. The political capital was Monte Albán, but the head priests lived out in the west at Mitla, and underneath their very, very finely carved temples are big networks of these same kinds of tombs. They're the most elaborate, and they're fun to get around in. Not far from that is Yagul, another big palace complex that sits up on a hill not far from Mitla. It's also got a number of finely carved, complex tombs, very much like the one they found in Huitzo. One of the most important tombs is found in the site of Sachila, in the southern arm of the Valley of Oaxaca. There are still people living there today, but there's also an archaeological site. There's a tomb there that has an individual that was buried inside there that was actually named on the tomb, in murals inside the tomb. He was Nine Flower, and we've actually been able to identify that individual in the Mixtec codices. There are these genealogies that go way back that mix Mixtec and Zapotec civilization together, and Nine Flower was important enough to be named in those. There is a name somewhere, a calendar name, in the new tomb in Huitzo. I haven't seen any pictures of it yet, but if we can get that name, it's possible this person will also show up in these codices. Now, Monte Albán is the place where all of the richest tombs were found. In fact, the richest tomb that has ever been found north of South America, I'll say, was Monte Albán Tomb 7. It was found in 1931 by Alfonso Caso, and it was full of ceramics and jades and precious gems, but also gold. That's pretty rare for Mexico. We don't see a lot of gold objects, but in Monte Albán Tomb 7, there were tons. There's an entire museum wing dedicated to just displaying them in Oaxaca City these days. My point in talking about those other tombs is to set this thing in context. It is not alone. It's definitely a neat find, but there are hundreds of other examples. In fact, in that same pueblo, San Pablo Huitzo, there's a little archaeological site that holds a tomb that's just like the one they just discovered. That site's name is Cerro de Campana. It's not open to the public, and it was dug 40 years ago in 1985. But the form of the tomb that they found was just the same. It had that antechamber and then the one tomb chamber, and on the outside it had carvings of a man and a woman looking in. Even the murals inside were very similar to what's just been reported. There were parts of those murals had men that were walking and spreading copal seeds, which is a known Zapotec funerary rite. So we have these very similar tombs right there. Now, I will say that I don't know many other tombs from the northern edge of the valley where all the farmland probably was, even back in the ancient times. So this is interesting and adds something to the northern valley. But when it comes to our understanding of Zapotec civilization, I'd say, if anything, it's just bolstering the point that I and other archaeologists have been saying forever, that the Zapotec civilization was vast and something to be respected and remembered. Now, the one thing that the articles that I can read on the internet and the pictures I can see don't show us was what was actually inside the tomb. The first pictures are of a huge stone blocking the entrance into the antechamber. So I hold some hope that the looters actually were stopped before the archaeologists could get there. So when they opened up that tomb and they took that big stone out, there was probably someone in there. Now, I did find some reports that say there were ceramics and human remains that had been taken to a lab for analysis. But when you look at the pictures, it's just a very clean sheet with a kind of a black trash bag material going up down the middle. No doubt to have people kneel there and clean the walls without damaging anything else. But it looks like they took all the contents out of the tomb. Now, that's not a criticism. That's the way things should go. And I imagine that the lack of photos of bodies may well be respect for the Zapotec people and their ancestors. So that's all well and good. But considering that the most fantastic tomb in all of the Americas was found in that very same valley in Monte Albán, well, gosh, I would like to know what was in there. And hopefully, in subsequent reports, Ina will tell us. Until then, congratulations to Ina on a wonderful find, and to all the Mexican people for another example of their indigenous heritage preserved.